Hey guys, I want to share a story with you of a friend of mine. I returned to him that evening and burst through the door. The very first thing he did was yell at me and complain about how there was nothing to eat. He was starving, of course. And when I heard those words come out of his mouth, I couldn't help but to reply, "Yeah, and you're thirsty too." That stopped him dead in his tracks. He looked at me for a second as if he wasn't sure what I meant and that I normally would never respond to him so directly. He didn't realize it yet, but I wasn't the same woman who walked out the door that morning. I was full and needed to share something with him for my journey that day. I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but I knew that no matter what, God would be with me. If he chose to stay, he would do the right thing and seek God's way. He would come with me to see the deliverer, the one who could speak to the very pain, anger, addiction issues that showed up in our lives. If he chose to leave, well, I knew I would be okay too. I had a new mission in my life, and I had something so valuable to give others. He walked over to the table. I grabbed his hand and led him to sit down. "I need to tell you something," I said to him. "Something that will completely change our lives forever."
Hello, and welcome to When We Talk.
Yes.
I'm Stephen Conway, and this is my wonderful wife, Tamara.
Hello, everybody.
And we're so glad you joined us today because when we talk, we are in process.
Yes, we are. And when we talk, you can actually enjoy the process.
And when we talk, we grow.
Yes. And when we talk, it is the hope and grace of God that we heal.
Yes. Wow. In fact, today on When We Talk, the subject is the process. The process. Now, girl, where'd you read that from? You were reading something from somewhere. Where'd you read that from, girl?
I did. I have been in the process of writing over the last, actually 10 years. Recently just almost completed writing a book about my life, the things that, I've experienced and the things the Lord has taught me. But also I'm writing a book regarding adaptations of some of the stories of the characters in the Bible that I feel like just weren't fully told, right? Or I shouldn't say fully told. God gave us what we needed, right? But what happens when people go home? You know what I'm saying? And that was the woman at the well. She had to go home to somebody. And what was that like for her?
Yes.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time talking about, or trying to talk anyway, about things that are pertinent to everyday life. But we wanted to try to unpack a little bit because, especially in a Christian context, it becomes, we become focused on, the wow factor. Boom, bang, psh, whatever makes, a big splash. That's what we are attracted to. And listen, if we're honest, if you read the New Testament, actually even the Old Testament, there are portions in the Bible that seem also to focus on the wow factor.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus feeding 5,000 men besides women and children, Jesus walking on the water, lepers being healed, right?
All kinds of.
The dead being raised to life, withered hands are restored.
Yeah.
All of these different things. And it's like, man, how many of us hasn't said at some point in time, man, I wish that I was alive when to have seen and experienced the miracles of Jesus or of the apostles. And it's like, man, I feel like I'm being cheated because I haven't been able to experience that.
Well, was one of the most amazing stories, of course, is when Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, right? And I remember, maybe when I was younger, hearing someone say, "But he died eventually, right?" And it blew my mind. I was just like, wait a minute, he did. He did die, obviously, right?
Wow.
And that was an aspect of the biblical stories that began that process for me of wondering, like, wait a minute, there's more to people's lives than after their healing. Like, what happens next?
Yeah, you're healed, Now
Now
what?
what?
Now what? Right?
Yeah.
And here's where the process,
Yeah.
right? Actually, the healing is a part of the process. Unfortunately, unfortunately, what we often mistake is we mistake the healing for the process.
Oh,
But the healing is
yeah.
only a part of the process. In many instances, it's only the beginning of the process.
Wait. So you mean to tell me that the celebration of the healing, whether it's in our lives or in other people's lives or the biblical healings that we saw, that wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. It
Wow.
wasn't it at all. Because those people, as you suggested, they had to go home. As you were alluding to with in the story of the woman at the well, you know, her home was with this man who wasn't her husband.
That wasn't her husband.
Who was number 6, and the previous 5 had, okay,
Yeah.
getting carried away. But you understand.
Yes.
She had to go home, and so too did every other person in the Bible
Yeah.
who experienced healing. Now, we have been talking because when we talk, we heal.
Yes.
But we wanted to just expand a little bit more on the concept of process.
Yeah. The practicality of what these people experience. And what I love about her story, we can start with her, right, is that she had an attitude, right, there at that well. She had her preconceived notions and ideas, and Jesus met her there. We talked about that, how he met her alone, by herself. But there was a reason why she was there by herself. You know, there was a reason why, because that wasn't the norm, right? Normally people would make that journey to go do those types of things with other people. And I imagine she was a woman who probably was very isolated, maybe carried a lot of shame and guilt in her life. And yet, when she met Jesus there at that well, we make it seem as though now that her eyes are open, that on her way back, it said that she told all these people, right? I met a man, you know, that had told me all the things that I've ever done, you know, but I wonder how people perceived her, because people knew her business. You know, they knew that she had a man. They saw the people going in and out of her home. You know, if Jesus knew, you know, I know that the other people there in town, because people watch us, right? They see the life that we're living, and I imagine it wasn't probably that easy for her to go back and just proclaim what God had done in her life. What do you think about that?
That was a challenge.
Yeah.
It was certainly a challenge for her.
Yeah.
But because she had experienced a change, I like that. Because she had experienced a change, this challenge she was able to meet by making a different type of choice
Yes.
than she had ever made before.
Yeah.
You know?
I wonder if there's somebody out there who's like that, a man or a woman who God has met you at your proverbial well, right? And you didn't even expect to meet him there. You know what I'm saying? You didn't know that you were coming to that place. You didn't know you were going to that grocery store. You didn't know that you were going to end up in the church. It was a funeral maybe. You're just going to give your respects, and you heard something that drew your heart, right? And you left. Maybe not necessarily every aspect of your life changed, but you were changed in that moment. And you walked out and you went back to maybe a spouse who wasn't really with it. That must be interesting, huh?
Yeah.
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 That has to be a struggle.
It does.
Yeah.
It really is a struggle. You know, we started a podcast, and the podcast is actually entitled At the Well.
Yes.
And the reason we entitled it that was because of the power of encounters with Jesus, right? Jesus, as you suggested, meets us at the proverbial well of our lives.
Yeah.
And he wants to affect ongoing change in our lives and each and every one of our lives. And so this woman's story is indeed a fascinating story because it reminds us really and truly of our own story. Not exactly the same, but certainly an encounter with Jesus begins transformation. But hers is not the only story.
Oh.
In the Gospels, there's a story of the man who was born blind from birth in John chapter 9. And I like this story because Jesus heals this man, and after Jesus heals him, you can already see the uniqueness. The Bible gives us a little bit of a close-up of the uniqueness of the change in relationship between this man and his parents. Because the religious leaders ask his parents, is this your son? you know, and they say, now notice the parents probably had been used to speaking and doing and saying a lot of things on behalf of their son.
True.
But now that he has his sight,
Yeah.
they say, this is our son. We know that. But as to how he received his sight, you ask him, right? So there's this change between how the parents are relating to their son, right? So that those types of changes definitely take place. Go ahead.
Man, I in my own life, I know that when I was around 17 or 18 years old, just living a dastardly life, right? And the Lord accosted me and got a hold of my heart. And I began this process of changing, you know. Saw a lot of things growing up in the home, and of course, generational curses passed along. And yet, the Lord snatched me out of, you know, living with somebody, doing, you know, with someone who actually resembled my father in a way, who was, you know, an alcoholic. And so this person was also, you know, resembling those same patterns of addictions. And I remember, you know, wanting to change, and the Lord actually coming into my life and me having to go to my family as a different person. And, you know, it changed how me and my parents related. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't easy because I know my parents thought at first, like, man, you think you're better than us? You know what I'm saying? Now you're walking with the Lord, and who are you? But, you know, God really helped me and my parents to heal, you know, in that process, because it wasn't that I felt like I was better. Sometimes God uses the children to reach the parents. You know, I know I resented that for a while. I thought, man, no, the parents, they're supposed to be the ones to, you know, to come and get me and fix, you know, and all that stuff. And the Lord was like, be quiet, girl. You know what I'm saying? I can use whoever I want to use. You know what I'm saying? So maybe you feel that. Maybe there's some bitterness you carry as maybe a child or a person who felt like, no, it should be the other people who are leading the way spiritually. But it's like, man, God can do whatever he's going to do. And I praise God for him doing that in my life. And it led my parents on a path of them rededicating their lives to God and giving their hearts to God. And so,
Amen.
yeah.
Amen. Yeah, you know, another story that I love is, and there are several of these actually, but I love the story of the man who was healed of his leprosy. And I like to paint the picture like this. We just, again, we look at the fact he's healed from leprosy. That's got to be the greatest thing ever.
Gotta be.
And certainly everybody in his life is celebrating this healing that he's experienced. Not so fast. So here, I want you to imagine with me, because remember that in this time, if a person contracted this disease, then they would not live in their home. They would live in a leper colony, or they would live somewhere outside of the city, away from the city. And imagine this guy has had this disease for 5-6 years. Maybe he was married. He and his wife had children. But his wife has never seen anyone healed of leprosy. And so she is emotionally disconnected, waiting to receive word that your husband has died.
That's that survival mode, right?
Yeah. But it's a natural thing. Because, I mean, who's been healed? They're not just handing out medicine to heal people from this disease. So her expectation is, my husband will die. She's emotionally preparing herself for that.
I gotta survive.
Trying to find a way to take care of these children and so forth and so on. And here she is, emotionally detached, wondering what life is going to be like after she gets the word that he is dead. And guess who decides to show up? He bursts in the door. Hey, honey, kids, I'm home. And at first, everybody draws back like, whoa, what is going on? He's like, no, I'm healed. And he shows them that his skin is clean and it's fresh. And he literally and truly has been healed. And it's like, whoa, everybody hugs him and jumps around. But wait a minute. His wife no longer feels the way she once did for him, because she has emotionally detached from him. And so he's like, honey, and she's just staring in disbelief. Like, now the plans and everything she's been trying to figure out how to survive for the last 5 or 6 years, and now all of that is thrown out of the window because this man has walked back in and he's healed. And even though she was preparing to lose him, now he's going to be a part of her life and that of her children. And she's just staring, and he's like, honey, I'm home, I'm healed.
Yeah.
Shouldn't this be a great thing?
Man, thinking about those children, right? Going from having a parent that they had, and then I had to readjust, and now he's gone, and he's back, that emotional back and forth, And listen, we got people who go through that today, right? Maybe there's addiction, maybe there is brokenness and all these different things, and then people heal, right? They're working on getting better, and they want to return home. Man, I know what that's like.
Yes. I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, I remember when I was 19 years old, my parents remarried, as I shared with you guys in a previous episode, and I had conditioned myself not to need my father. And when they got remarried, 10 years later, he entered back into the home sober, praise God, in his right mind. Him and my mom had worked through some things, but he was trying to connect with me, and I just didn't know how to do it.
Resistant.
I resisted it, and I was angry. Listen, maybe you're that parent, and you're like, man, I'm trying to get back into my child's life, and it just seems like it's hard. And it's like, guess what? It's hard because they have emotionally disconnected, and it's going to take some time. It takes some conversation. It takes some forgiveness, but don't give up. I thank God my father didn't give up on me, and we eventually were able to heal.
Yeah, so it's actually a normal part of the process when we are experiencing healing for the people that we want to celebrate our healing to sort of be resistant because either they've disconnected, they've detached, or they don't really know what to make. Is this real? Can I trust that this person is going to continue on in this new path or in this healed life?
Yeah, it's not personal. I love to say that. It feels personal, but it's not personal. The rejection that we meet is because we go into these modes where we're trying to survive and make it. And in order to make it, we have to tell ourselves we don't need these people, And yet we were created to have relationship.
That's right.
And to be in bonds with one another.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I remember just thinking about my own process. I remember when I first was drawn to the Lord, surrendered my heart to the Lord. I remember going back to Cleveland, Ohio, where we're from, and I remember trying to share and trying to witness with basically everybody that I used to run with. And I remember the looks on their faces and, when they found out that, hey, look, man, I don't do some of the things that we used to do together. They were like, man, are you okay? Are you this? Are you that? I remember them even going so far as to try to entice me to come to certain places and engage in certain things. And at first, my response was I was angry. And actually, let me rephrase that. I was angry, but more or less I was focused on the fact that this is the devil. The devil is in them and the devil is using them to try to this, that, and the other, which may have been the case. But I don't believe that any of them were conscious. I know some of them didn't even believe in God. So they weren't conscious that they were being used by the devil. Here's what was going on from a human perspective. They were testing me to see if my experience was real.
Really true, yeah.
And what was so important about this revelation to me is for them, if my experience was authentic,
oh yes,
then it meant something about their experience.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so they needed to test me to make sure that this was the real thing, that this was legit.
Yeah.
And of course, by the grace of God, when they seen it was legit, then they have to wrestle with, what does this mean for me?
Yeah.
I remember having a conversation with the guy who used to be my best friend. And I remember we were on the phone and I was sharing with him, we had just gotten engaged. And I remember he and I were speaking. He was in the Marine Corps and he was a part of my wedding. And I was just telling him when we were going to get married and everything. And I remember the phone just going silent. Yeah. And it was almost as though he was crying. I don't know, but he was just like, man, Steve, I want what you have. Yeah. He's like, I want what you have. Now, this brother and I, we used to get into some foolishness.
Trouble.
Some straight foolishness.
Yeah.
But I remember that silence on the other end of the phone.
Yeah.
And I remember that cry for something better, right? And so in our process, we shouldn't be shocked when people have questions. We shouldn't be shocked when people are not as excited about our process as we are about our process. Some of that is merely just they want to see whether or not it's authentic.
Yeah. And I think about another story in the Bible, the woman caught in the act of adultery. That is a powerful story because we believe that she's also the woman who, with the alabaster box, right? Who goes and presents herself and, you know, just shares that love, right? That appreciation, you know, for what has been done, the transformation that has taken in her life. But yet, when she walked in the room, people were tripping. Right? There are people who thought she didn't belong there. You know what I'm saying? There are people who questioned again, does he know who she is? You know, and we know her story. We know what she's done. And there are times.
Some people who have been doing some.
Well, you know what? Tell the truth, shame the devil. Okay.
I wish she would hurry up and get out of here. It's reminding me of where I came from.
Or that, I was one of the people. Okay, yeah, okay. And but that story is powerful because. You know, she had been healed, you know, her life had been transformed, and yet there are places where we are that we can't change. You know, sometimes when we are healed, the proximity of where we are can't always change. We don't always have the ability to be able to leave the homes or disconnect from the families or leave the jobs, or, you know, it would be nice if we could do that, but that's not always how life works. And she had to remain in the community. You know, while she was healed, and still listen to the jeers and listen to the people throwing up in her face who she was.
Yeah, and neither is it always expedient that we leave the place we came from. You remember when Jesus heals the demoniac and he wants to get into the boat. He's like, okay, time to blow this popsicle stand. I'm out of here. I'm leaving this life behind. I'm ready to go wherever I'll go where you want me to go. Yeah, okay, I was off tune. But anyway, you know, we're all about getting into this new, and Jesus says, go home.
Woo, Lord.
And tell how great things God has done for you.
I don't want to go home, Lord. Those people are crazy. Do you know what these people are like,
God? So were you until I healed you.
Amen.
Go home and tell how great things the Lord has done. Right? See, in many of our experiences, the process is a one-way escape away from whatever it is that we want to run away from. And God may, in fact, be telling us, no, you need to go back to where you've come from. Now, I'm not saying that is absolute. That's absolute. That's the same for everyone. Obviously, Jesus allowed people to follow him. But in this case, Jesus said, no, you need to go home. And so it's not always expedient for us to get as far away as we can. And here's another thing. Guess what? Our experience is tested, refined. It becomes deeper in the context of relationships. Right? So the monastic lifestyle, you can go up in the wilderness if you want to, and you're going to be fighting with the ravens and the chipmunks and the squirrels and the raccoons. And you're going to be trying to, where are these raccoons around here? I'm just
God's going to develop that character one way or another.
He's going to reach you up there. But God's purpose, I believe, is for us to experience that refining process in the context of relationship. And isn't it difficult when people know who you were? Isn't it difficult when people know how you used to live, how you used to talk? And now all of a sudden your language has changed, and all of a sudden you don't do the things, you don't go the places you used to go. And you have to be a Christian, and you have to continue and maintain your walk with God in that context.
Another story that I thought was powerful, because it's kind of different, you know, when we talk about healing, right? Now what? Job. You know, for all intents and purposes, God restored. That's a form of healing. He restored unto him what he had lost, right? But I want us to be sure that we don't mix this up, because we've been talking about there's a difference between God replacing losses and restoring, right? Restoring and replacing are not the same, because life cannot be replaced. Every single life that exists on the planet of the earth matters to God. And so do you think Job forgot about the children that he once had?
Not at all. And the new children that he had, as you mentioned to your point, they were not a replacement. They were a blessing on top of the blessing that his first set of children were.
So healing doesn't mean forgetting, as we talked about, right? That I must let those memories go, or those relationships did not matter, right? He had to continue on living after the restoration. And I have to believe that even as he continued on living, enjoying the children that God gave him, the other things and other people that God put in his life, right, that he still remembered. And it was okay. It was okay to remember. It was okay to hold those things dear.
Yeah, I think even after we experience healing and we begin our process, it doesn't mean we throw away the people that we were in relationships with in the past. We should pray for them, and we should desire that they too can walk into the same healing in the process that we are enjoying ourselves.
Absolutely.
Now you can watch episodes of When We Talk with Stephen and Tamara Conway anytime at 3abnplus.tv or on our 3ABN Plus app for smartphones and tablets.
Discover the keys to healthier family relationships and better communication. Just visit 3abnplus.tv or download the app and search for When We Talk. Put your feet on the path to relationships like God intended them to be.
The process is real. People say the struggle is real, but the process is real. And we love the idea that God has each and every one of his dear and precious children in process. I want to remind you of something that the Lord revealed to us as we were studying and thinking about this. The healing has a purpose. The healing that the man at the pool of Bethesda, or the woman at the well, or the man who was born blind in John chapter 9, the healing that anyone for that instance in the New Testament or Old experience, it has a purpose. But here's the purpose. The purpose is this: if God can heal me in this area of my life, then he can sustain me in the other areas of my life. We painted a picture of a man who is cleansed, healed from leprosy, who has to go home to really a broken and emotionally broken home, and has to be reinserted into a situation that no one ever expected him to return to. Well, if God could heal my leprosy, then God can heal my marriage. God can heal my fractured relationship with my children. The same God who has power to do this dynamite action has power in process to slowly minister grace to each and every one of us. So here's the word of encouragement for you. Stay in process. I love Jeremiah 18. Stay on the wheel and let the potter continue to mold and shape you. Never give up, because when we talk, we are in process, and when we talk, we heal.